Okay, so if you're a developer who has ever tried to build a Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG, application from scratch, you already know the struggle is very, very real. Well, it looks like Google just dropped a tool that might just change the entire game. So let's dive into how you can ground your AI models in your own data, but the simple way, using the brand new File Search API. Here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll get into the big dilemma every RAG developer faces. Then, we'll introduce Google's solution and see how it stacks up against the do-it-yourself approach. After that, I'll show you just how ridiculously easy it is to get started, and we'll wrap things up by talking about why this really changes everything. All right, let's start with the RAG developer's dilemma. Now, building these systems is incredibly powerful, we all know that, but doing it yourself, well, that can feel like you're navigating a maze of hidden and, honestly, frustrating complexities. I mean, does this sound familiar to you? You've got this awesome idea for a RAG-powered app, but you end up spending way more time just trying to manage the pipeline than actually building the cool features you were excited about in the first place. Yeah, it can be a real headache. You know, when you decide to build RAG from the ground up, you are on the hook for, well, everything. You've got to manage the file storage, you have to figure out the best chunking strategies, which is a whole science in itself. Then you're handling embedding models, setting up and scaling a vector database, and after all that, you still have to code how to inject the context into the prompt. Honestly, any one of these steps could be its own full-blown project. So, there has to be a better way forward, right? And that brings us to Google's answer: file search. The best way to think about it is as your very own fully managed RAG system, right out of the box. So what is it exactly? To put it simply, it's a tool that's built right into the Gemini API. And its whole job is to completely abstract away that complicated retrieval pipeline we were just talking about. It just handles all the heavy lifting for you. And the whole goal here is to make it incredibly simple for you to ground Gemini models with your own data. And grounding is just a fancy way of saying you're connecting the AI's brain to your specific documents, so it doesn't just make stuff up. The result: you get an AI that thinks with your documents, giving you answers that are way more accurate, relevant, and, this is huge, easily verifiable because it gives you citations. Okay, now for the really fun part. Let's do a direct side-by-side comparison. I want you to see just how much simpler your whole workflow becomes when you swap from that do-it-yourself approach to using file search. Just look at this. It's night and day. On the left, that's your typical DIY workload. Manual file management, stressing over chunking strategies, managing embedding models, setting up a database, all of it. And on the right, file search just takes care of it, all of it. You're not just offloading the work, you're getting Google's own state-of-the-art models for things like chunking and embeddings baked right in. This is a massive shift that lets you focus on your actual app, not the plumbing underneath. So how does it pull this off? Well, the magic behind it all is something called semantic search. When you upload a file, the API automatically carves it up into smart chunks, turns those chunks into numerical representations, we call those embeddings, and then stores them. So when a user asks a question, their query also gets turned into an embedding. The system then does this super fast search to find the document chunks that have the most similar meaning. It's all about context, not just matching keywords. Now you might be thinking, okay, this sounds amazing, but it's probably really complicated to set up. Well, it's not. Let's walk through just how fast you can get your first query up and running. It is literally just 3 steps. First, you create a store. You can just think of this as a dedicated folder for your project's data. Second, you upload your files. This is where the API takes over and does all that heavy lifting for you, the chunking, embedding, and indexing. And finally, step 3, you just query the Gemini API like you normally would, but you tell it, hey, use my new store as a tool. And that's it. You're done. Seriously. All right, you're saying, what's the catch? What's the cost? This is another huge part of the story. The only processing fee you actually pay is for the initial indexing of your files. And as you can see, it's incredibly low. We're talking 15 cents for 1 million tokens. But the real story is what you don't have to pay for. The pricing model here is just so straightforward. You pay that tiny indexing fee once, upfront, and after that, the storage is free. Generating embeddings every time a user asks a question, that's free too. The only other cost is for the document chunks that get retrieved and sent to the model, and those are just charged like normal context tokens. This makes scaling your app incredibly predictable and cost-effective. So let's tie all of this together and talk about why this is such a big deal. What's the real impact this is going to have on the way you build AI applications? Hey, don't just take my word for it. Phaser Studio, who got early access, uses file search for their AI game generation platform, Beam. They found that it handles parallel queries in under 2 seconds. That same task used to take them hours to do manually. I mean, that's just a massive, massive efficiency gain. So let's get to the bottom line here. What do you, the developer, actually get? You get a simple tool that's already integrated into the Gemini API you're probably already using. It's powered by state-of-the-art vector search. It gives you verifiable answers with citations, and it scales without you even having to think about it. It lets you stop worrying about all the infrastructure and finally focus on what you actually want to build. This really, truly lowers the barrier to entry for building some incredibly sophisticated, data-grounded AI. From smart support bots to creative discovery platforms, the possibilities are just wide open now. So I guess the only question left is this. With managed RAG this simple, what are you going to build next?